Alrighty then, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide, the open world Final Fantasy VI, or as some of you may know it as in the United States and Canada, Final Fantasy III Randomizer. We are doing our RPG Limit Break submission race. My name is the Schwantz27. I'm joined here in the booth by Aprebs. Aprebs, how are you doing this morning?
Hello, I am doing just fine this morning, and good to hear from you, and good to get this race going. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, so RPG Limit Break is one of the premier speed running events for RPGs, and we are playing an RPG, so it seems to make sense that we would like to be a part of their charity marathon. They will be benefiting the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, and this will take place sometime later on in May, so stay tuned if we get accepted into our submission slot or one of their submission slots. We'll keep you up to date on how you could participate during the particular marathon. But what are we going to be seeing here today? We're going to be seeing 4 really great runners take on Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide. And what does that entail exactly? Well, the goal of Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide is to unlock and defeat the final boss of the game, which is Kefka. And in order to do that, our runners need to acquire 6 characters and find 9 espers scattered throughout the world at a lot of the vanilla game events. So a lot of the story beats during the original game are things that we are going to want to do and execute in order to get one of those rewards. There's also what's called a Kefka Tower skip, where you can skip right to the statue bosses. And if you go over in the amount of characters or espers you find, or you do 21 of these world events, then you'll be able to skip part of the final dungeon and get right to the boss gauntlet portion of it. What else do we need to know here, Aprebs, about Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide? Let's put up a little graphic, actually. Let's do that. I have one of those. There we go. Let's do this.
Hey, there we go. Yeah. Perfect. So yeah, the other main thing to know is, as you mentioned, they're able to go around open world and complete some of these story beats and story elements relating to each character. And with that, everybody starts off at the same level, and we start off at level 3 just to make things a little bit easier. And the bosses are scaled with you. And so as you complete checks and do some of these things and get these rewards, the bosses will continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So we're trying to plan for that and account for that and make sure that we're taking battles as we go through. Some of these checks are very helpful because they have forced encounters within them, so we're able to get levels as we are completing checks, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and routing that way really shows off our runners' expertise and knowledge of the game, which is always fun to see.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy VI is a pretty big game, so in order to sort of make sure that our runners are not overwhelmed by the amount of things that they can do, one of the interesting things about this game, aside from the fact that the unlock requirements are not key items, they're instead collecting things, is that the places that you can go in the world, or the checks that we're calling them, are gated, if you will, by what characters you have recruited. So if you have Edgar, you can only do certain parts of the original Final Fantasy VI game, things like visiting the Figaro throne, going down and clearing out the Figaro's castle engine room, or going all the way down to the ancient castle. And once you have Edgar, you can get the rewards by doing those particular actions in-game. So there's also a logic that runs through each one of these seeds that is generated that allows you to fully complete every seed to get every character and every esper. But since we only have to do a subset of that in order to unlock Final Kefka, the goal is then to try and find the best and most efficient path through the seed as you go up against the final boss. And as Apreb said, enemies are not scaled based on location as they are in some other randomizers. they're scaled based on the amount of progression that you have, which is why if we go back to our game screen here, you see the little numbers in gold. Those are our goals, but we also have the number of characters, number of espers, and number of dragons highlighted on our tracker here, because that will allow us to easily tell what enemies or what level rather the enemies will be, because it's characters plus espers plus dragons times 2. That'll be what our enemies are. Anything else we need to talk about here, Aprebs, before we start? And we'll explain a bit more as we go along in this particular seed.
The only other thing to talk about, I'd say, is if you actually look at Drink's Glue, he's showing off a little bit more of the objectives besides the how to unlock Final Kefka and the Kefka skip, showing off that you can actually add other objectives into Worlds Collide seeds, such as learning the 8 sword techs for whichever character happens to have sword tech as an ability. They can actually learn all 8 at one time if they complete the Doma Dream Awaken check. Same thing with Magitech upgrade. If they happen to find a character that has the Magitech ability, then they can get that upgrade if they finish the Magitech Factory check. So there's another fun dynamic with these seeds as well, based on these optional extra objectives that are implemented into seed. So fun stuff there as well, and could be something that changes the tide for one of these runners.
Yeah, and one of the things we actually didn't even mention, and I can't believe I forgot to talk about this until now, is we do see our runners kicking off here. We do have Umaro, at least, with Gogo and Sabin as our start. So our random 3 characters that we start off with are completely up to whatever the seed is. And the commands that each of the characters has are randomized. You see that Sabin has the Runic command, which is normally attributed to Celeste in the vanilla game. So besides the commands being randomized on the characters, the items in chests and shops are randomized. The character abilities are randomized. The espers that, or rather the spells that espers teach are randomized. And the places where the characters and espers are, obviously, are also randomized. The bosses are shuffled amongst the different locations, so we won't see the same boss twice, but they won't necessarily be in the same spot that you would normally see them in the vanilla game. So the first, I don't know, like 5 to 10 minutes of any Worlds Collide seed is usually trying to look through some places where we know that there is some significant loot in order to gain some builds for our characters, and to go around to the shops, because the shops are completely random from what they would be in the vanilla game as well.
Yeah, that's right. As we start off with level 3, it's always nice to try to make sure we can find some sufficient offensive and defensive options. I'd say that typically with a Worlds Collide seed, offense is king. Defense is nothing to be scoffed at and neglected. However, we're trying to go fast. So it's typically offense is the best defense for Worlds Collide, in the sense that we just try to kill things as fast as possible before they can hurt us too much.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah,
it's a lot
you'll see.
It's very much a DPS race, if you will. Can you kill the boss faster than it can kill you? So sometimes it is a good offense is the best defense, right? And there is a Valiant Knife, speaking of offense, in the Returner's hideout. So that is an endgame weapon there. That does more damage as your health gets lower and lower. So it might seem like it's not too favorable, but with the defensive pieces of equipment that Aprebs mentioned, it's pretty easy to keep your characters from either dying or taking too much damage in battle. We see another couple of interesting things that have been picked up. A Thunder Shield, which will teach a Tier 2 Elemental Thunder spell, Bolt 2, and a Genji Glove, which allows a character to hold 2 weapons at once, so that they get to attack with 2 weapons instead of 1 on their individual turn. So again, this is sort of the thing that the runners usually do at the very beginning. After some of the looting and shopping, Aprebs, what are some of the things that our runners might do, given the characters that they have here, Sabin, Gogo, and Umaro?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Saban has a large number of checks of the 3 characters they have. Gogo only has 1, and I believe Yumaro also only has 1.
That is correct.
So they may want to go with volume over the other 2, so they might go to do some Saban checks. However, Saban checks are also kind of longer on the average. But he does have some peekable checks. So in this instance, I'd say that information is going to be king. And if they can do more peekable checks, then that's probably what they're going to try to go for. And so Saban has a decent amount of peekable checks. And Yumaro's check is also peekable. So they could at least see that and decide if they want to go all the way to completion on that one. But I would probably go for Saban checks.
I don't know.
Yeah, but these guys are really good at what they do, so they may surprise me.
I don't know if we saw what the Umaro check was. You could actually go and take a look in the World of Balance Narsh. I know a couple of our runners were in World of Balance Narsh. You could peek.
Yeah, I don't know if they went up
the
there.
Yeti cave. Okay. So you could peek what's there, and if there's a character that looks out of that little cave, then you know that the character is a reward at that particular spot. Otherwise, it could be an Esper or a high-tier item. As you saw on Drink's glue screen, he was checking the equipability of items, so that's something that's also a little bit randomized. So with this particular set of settings, our characters can equip everything they could normally equip in the vanilla game. Plus, there's a 33% chance that a character can randomly equip something that they could not in the vanilla game. So that Valiant Knife is only for Locke in the original Final Fantasy VI game. However, in this particular seed, we did see that Saban was able to use it, so that is something that Saban will probably be doing for the rest of the seed here.
Yeah, that's another important part of this Worlds Collide randomizer, is that that equipment shuffle. Same thing with relics and armor pieces as well. So
yep, absolutely.
Speaking of relics, we also got to see some earrings picked up in South Figaro there. So finding somebody with magic, or once we get an Esper that can start teaching some nice high tier magic, will be very helpful for that as well.
Yeah, so let's take a look in here, and we see it's 61,600 for a glowing stone that Tizen Thief is selling. So in the vanilla game, you can buy a Esper at that spot. In Worlds Collide, that amount is randomized, and it's random between the World of Balance and World of Ruin, so it could be different. But you can only determine whether or not it is an Esper from the text in the World of Balance here. So let's talk a little bit about the checks that we have available to us. We started talking about it a little earlier. Saban has 5 different checks, as you mentioned. One of them is the Imperial Camp, which is where you fight some of Kefka's soldiers and recruit Cyan, actually, in the vanilla game. But you start that check with Saban, so that's why it's a Saban check. So there are 4 forced encounters and no bosses in that area, so that is usually a pretty favorable one to start off with, because you may not get walled by an immediate difficult boss. Some other options we can go to. Barren Falls is a straight-up boss fight. You just jump off the cliff and fight a boss. Mount Colts from the vanilla game. You can also go and walk over there and do a fight. PB&J is showing us the World of Ruin check for Saban, which is the Collapsing House. And there's one more check for Saban that I'm sort of forgetting here. Oh, how could I forget? The Phantom Train. So. Yep,
the old Phantom Train.
So, Aprebs, why are our runners not running into random encounters here as they're walking around on the world?
Yeah, so with Worlds Collide, in order to help our runners go as fast as possible, we give them 3 Moogle Charms to start off with. We give them 3 because for certain checks, and especially as we get to Final Kefka, we do have to split our party into 3 parties. And so that way each party can get a Moogle Charm, which eliminates all random encounters.
Yeah, so that's, you could either keep it on if you don't want to fight the random battles, or if you want to get some levels for your characters, you could take off the Moogle Charm and do what we call as grind fights. Fights that you don't have to necessarily take, but ones that might be beneficial, because levels are the best thing in Worlds Collide to get your power up. And it looks like our top 2 runners here are finishing up with the collapsing house, as PB&J is going to get his reward, and it's a big shiny sword.
Oh yeah.
It's an Illumina. So sometimes a world event may not give you a character or an Esper, and instead will give you a high tier item, and that is a high tier item. We also see Zen Thief is just under 40,000 in the World of Ruin, so it's a bit cheaper there. And meanwhile, Gar in Imperial Camp sees Gao fighting off these soldiers here, so we know that Gao is going to be our character as the reward for the Imperial Camp check here.
Yeah, and that's what I mentioned earlier about having peekable checks, and you mentioned this. You can see what the possible reward is for Umaro's check in the World of Balance. Narsh, normally you'd see the Yeti poking his head out of that little cave window. If you happen to see another character, you know that that character is the reward for his check. If it's a NPC sprite, such as a soldier or a ghost like you saw here at the collapsing house, then that tells you that it's going to be either an Esper or high tier item. So yeah, seeing Gao here, now Gar knows, okay, follow through and I complete these forced encounters, I know I'm going to get Gao as my reward. So that's why I mentioned that I would go with the Saban's checks, because so many of his are peekable. Same thing with that collapsing house. They could tell right away as they started it, it was a ghost sprite that was holding up the house. So they knew they weren't going to get a character, but they could possibly get something else that's useful. And Illumina is pretty useful.
Meanwhile, PB&J, please, did purchase that Esper that Zen Thief was selling. It was Siren, so that is a really good Esper to have for Final Kefka, because that allows us to negate one of the parts of Final Kefka, and it also teaches a spell called Merton, which is a very powerful spell if you can get it online. So one of the things that our runners are doing is not only are they trying to tackle the immediate challenge in front of them, they know that in order to win their race, they have to defeat Final Kefka, and Final Kefka, that battle is always the same no matter what. So that's why our runners are constantly planning for not just the next fight in front of them, they're accruing things for what's called an endgame build in order to fight Final Kefka. And we do have a dancing health Gao, or dance control Gao. I don't remember what his second ability was. It was not anything to write home about. So PB&J, please, looks like he's grinding outside the Coliseum, so we'll explain that mechanic once he does it. But Gar, meanwhile, is finishing up here at the Imperial Camp, set his party down to 3 so that he could start doing one of Gao's checks, which is the Velt. His other check is the Serpent Trench, which is also just some forced encounters without a boss, so that's a really nice one to do early as well. We didn't mention, I don't think, Gogo's check, which is the Zone Eater belly, where you recruit Gogo in the vanilla game, and then we also mention Umaro's cave. So you want to explain a little bit about the Coliseum here as PB&J, please? Sees a couple of really nice rewards here.
Yeah. So yeah, with the Coliseum, our characters have that option to hop into the Coliseum and wager a piece of equipment or an item that they have for a separate reward. Now, most often, those are going to be very random and they are going to be hidden, but we do actually have it set up where you can see some of those rewards. A percentage of those rewards are going to be visible, and so if you happen to see one that is enticing enough, you can hop in there, have a one-on-one battle with a random enemy, and if you win, then you win the wager and you get that item. Yeah,
so the item that you wager for the item reward that you get is randomized in Worlds Collide, as well as the enemy that you have to fight to get that item. So they're both randomized. And you don't get to control your characters in the Coliseum, so that's why Umaro is generally a pretty good choice for the Coliseum, because he has very good stats and abilities in order to fight in the Coliseum. Meanwhile, One Free Fitz decides to go over to Zone Eater and is getting some horrific luck here. So normally Zone Eater
I was going to point that out.
more Demi. So Zone Eater has a chance of choosing Engulf, which will start the check, or Demi, which will get your character's HP in half, and he's all the way down to 2 HP before finally getting engulfed. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. And Gar's going to go for the Velt here, and he's going to try to do that Gao check. So Gao in the vanilla game, right, you find him on the Velt, and you're able to recruit him by tossing him some jerky. And so what happens here, we do the same thing. We're going to be able to get into some fights. A little unlucky for Gar as well, taking a long time to find a fight, and then not getting the reward after. After you finish a fight, there's that chance that the character will come out afterwards, and you can throw them the jerky. So a little bit of bad luck going around right now. But we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. There are certain formations where the reward will never show up, but we haven't found those yet. So if you do a normal attack with four or less enemies on the screen, and you have an open slot in your party, so that's why Gar has to have 3 party members in order to do this check, then that is when you may be able to get the reward. He's just been unlucky in fighting the fights and not getting the reward. So sometimes you may have to take another encounter or two to reset the encounter table. And you know what the worst part about this is? That he's not getting any XP from this, because you don't get any XP from the belt. Finally, a merchant sprite shows up, so that means that this is the first Esper there for Gar, and it is Zone Seek. Meanwhile, an imp at the end of Zone Eater means that is just an item, not what One Free Fits was wanting to see after getting demied multiple times there. Just a Genji glove.
Yeah, and there in this case we can think that maybe Fitz is saying, okay, well, let me get that one check out of the way instead of going through all these other checks that I'll have, because possibly it might be a character. And if you want to go more into this, Schwantz, the logic behind Worlds Collide and rewards is essentially you're supposed to be able to find more progression from the newer characters you have. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Worlds Collide is deeper than it is wide, and what that essentially means is your newer characters will, generally speaking, be off of the branching path that your latest recruited characters will be. So that's something to take into consideration for our runners. But there's also lots of different attributes that each of the checks gives us that a runner has to weigh at a singular point in time and say, all right, well, I have all of the characters I need, for instance. Let me go to a check that only rewards an Esper or an item because I don't need characters anymore. So there's a lot of that different thinking that has to go on here with the runners. One Free Fits going to Zone Eater might have also thought, in a race setting, maybe some of the other runners are not going to go, excuse me, do this particular check. So if it is something really good, then that'll give me an advantage that nobody else has. So there is some psychology and meta mind games that do go into a Worlds Collide seed as well.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a good point. Gar here showing off the Barren Falls check and finds a Guardian in the waterfall. And so this is showing off the fact that, yeah, we've got these completely random boss encounters as well. You have a very late game boss here at Barren Falls. So in this case, kind of a scary boss, but also nice to run into it a little bit early and have that knowledge of, okay, now that one's out of the way. So
yeah, Guardian is one of the last bosses in Kefka's Tower you would normally fight, so this is going to be a lot of HP that Gar has to chew through, but I don't think he's in any real danger of dying in this fight, because Guardian doesn't do a whole heck of a lot in terms of attack damage, and while he's at low level, his attacks also will not hurt nearly as much as they do later on in the game. Unfortunately, Gogo is sort of sitting around and doing nothing for the time being. We haven't figured out what Gogo is going to be doing for that particular party. So that also doesn't help his case very much either, as Drinks Glue does end up picking up that Esper. PB&J Please is also going to be picking that up as well. So PB&J out in the lead with both Magicite and number of checks. So 21, as we mentioned, is for the Kefka Tower skip. not for unlocking Kefka. So just to clarify what the numbers are on the screen. Meanwhile, Gar does find a character here at the bottom of Barren Falls, and it is Setzer. So you want to talk about what Setzer gives for us?
Yeah, so Setzer, he allows us to immediately, when you're in the vanilla game, when you're flying around the World of Ruin, there's that chance of running into Doomgaze. If we have Setzer in our party, however, we can actually just directly go fly to initiate that fight. So that is one of them that opens up to us. The other checks that become available with Setzer are the Daryl's Tomb as well. And am I missing
the
one?
Culligan Inn, where you recruit him in the vanilla game. Yes. Nice sync on our corner runners here.
Yeah.
Both hopping into the Serpent Trench. They'll be our first runners through it. Meanwhile, one free Fitz use the Thunder Shield, so you can use a shield in battle and break it to cast a maximum damage defense ignoring tier 3 elemental spell. So he broke that Thunder Shield and then used the Mimic command with Go-Go in order to use the Thunder Shield power yet again. You can mimic things that are not necessarily in your inventory anymore, so nice heads-up play from him there. And he did it to take out one of the dragons. So dragons do count as checks, and they will also drop a high-tier item in addition to giving out a lot of XP. 50 MP to basically teach you mostly any spell, and their vanilla drop. So the Skull Dragon, I think, is a muscle belt in the vanilla game. That is a relic that increases your HP by 50%, which, as we mentioned before, would go really nicely with that Valiant Knife that does more damage as you get lower and lower HP compared to your max.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, right before we were going to talk about Setzer, I was going to bring up shucks, it's escaping my brain right now, but when it comes back, I'll bring it up again. Looks like Fitz here is actually opting to, he's up at the World of Ruin Narsh,
yep.
completing one of the character free checks, one of the non-gated checks. So there are a couple of checks in Worlds Collide that you can go for without having a specific character to go for it. So Tritalk up at the top of well, is Tritalk actually no? Tritalk is free.
Tritalk is not character gated. However, it does block the Umaro check. So if you want to do the Umaro check, like one free Fitz is doing here, you need to first go through the Tritalk check. And he's looking in the monster in a box and finds Gigantos, which is the single most XP per level rich enemy in the game. So he got a ton of XP for completing that fight there, and it was pretty easy as Umaro has a Blizzard Orb equipped and can use the Storm ability for his party. And he's going to continue on to do the Yeti check here in just a second, and we'll see exactly what that is. Gar, meanwhile, did the Collapsing House, so let's give him another check, and he gets that Illumina. I don't think we've seen anybody that can use the Illumina yet, but Gar also is our only runner who has Setzer, who may have a chance to do that. Meanwhile, I think that was Phoenix that one free Fitz pulled out of the Yeti bones, and that is a Strago, yet another character after the Serpent Trench, so our corner runners are going to get themselves Strago.
Very nice, yeah. And yeah, that's not a bad pickup. We didn't really get to quite see what he had. Oh, there we go. He's got Blitz and Magic.
Yeah, Blitz is great.
Yeah, Blitz is a really nice one to find.
Uh-oh,
he's got a little bit of poison.
Well, even more
messy screen there.
Is, oh, okay. That's just number 24. I thought that was Magic.
Okay, yeah. Woo, yeah, that's a close one.
Meanwhile, one free Fitz fighting Rexol at the Yeti spot. So Rexol in the vanilla game will possess one of your characters and doesn't come back out until you damage that character down to critical HP levels. We thought in the Worlds Collide community that if we run into this in Kefka's Tower, that this is going to be a real big problem because we don't have a group of 4 necessarily in order to kill off one of those lesser characters. So what we did was we eliminated that zinger sort of move that Rexol does. So he doesn't possess any of your characters, which makes the fight slightly more, or slightly less interesting rather, and makes it a little bit easier. But it also makes it so that you can't use the vanilla speedrun strat of just using an Odin or Raiden summon to kill everything on the screen either. So that's one of the bosses that we've altered slightly in the race settings, because if we find that boss in Kefka's Tower and he happens to possess the only character in our party that's actually doing anything, because unlike in the vanilla game in Worlds Collide, you're really only leveling up 3 or 4, or rather 4 or 5 party members. You're not really fussed with most of the other ones. So in order to prevent that sort of anomaly where your meat shield in Kefka's Tower would have to kill your really strong character, we decided to just not have the zinger mode for that particular boss rather. Gar picking up some fixed dice there at Kolingen.
Ooh, very nice.
So that is something that his Setzer can naturally equip. That's a really nice pickup for him. Fixed dice, ignore magic defense, or rather ignore physical defense, will always hit the enemy, so it has a 100% hit rate, and you can use it from the back row, as well as its damage model being based off of your levels and not necessarily your character stats, but it is a bit slow, so it's got that sort of a trade-off. Meanwhile, Drinks Glue finding a Ragnarok in the Colosseum. So that is something that our other runners definitely didn't find when they went in there.
Yeah, they didn't notice that. Yeah, it's not there. They just went straight for the other one. But that's a good pickup for Drinks Glue there. PB&J showing off Mount Colts, running into the Stooges over there. Bit of a. I'd say that's a bit of a inconvenient fight at the levels that they're at now.
Especially
with the magic that they'd have available to them. Yeah,
it also looks like PB&J Please did not heal up his party before this fight, so this can be rather difficult because there are 3 separate entities that you have to fight. Strago does have Blitz, and most Blitz commands are based on the magic power of your character, and Strago's magic power is usually higher than that of some of your other vanilla characters. In Worlds Collide, the stats are random, but they're within a 80% to 120% of what their vanilla stats are. So you could roll high or roll low, but it's still based on what the normal stats were for the character in the base game. But Blitz doesn't allow for targeting, which can be difficult in this fight, where you need to kill that top stooge first, because he will both heal and revive the other ones, and thankfully PB&J was able
got
to
him
take
out.
him out.
Yeah, thankfully there. And luckily, actually now being able to use that health command on Gao to bring his party back a little bit, which is very helpful. However, the VK strats coming out here, you can see that Fitz is on purpose keeping Sabin low and in his more wounded state in order to get maximum potential out of that VK.
Yeah, so let's see what the reward is here. This is Mount Cult, so it's another one of Sabin's checks here for PB&J, and he does get an Esper, so he is still in the Shiny Stone lead of our runners currently. So let's talk a little bit about Strago. So Strago has 3 different areas of the game that he opens up. He opens up the Burning House, or the Casa del Fuego, as it's affectionately known in the community, where you do have some forced encounters with the flames and then a boss at the end. You also get access to Ebbets Rock, which is right north of Thamasa in the World of Ruin, where you have to collect pieces of coral before fighting a boss. And then the last spot is Fanatic's Tower, which is pretty infamous in the vanilla game for being a lot of stairs to climb. You can only use magic inside of Fanatic's Tower, and there is a dragon along the way, as well as a high-tier item in the chest at the top, but you have to go all the way up and all the way back down the tower in order to get the reward at the bottom. So a lot of runners choose not to do that earlier on because it is a bit of a lengthy check. However, it is guaranteed to be a character or an Esper. You cannot get a quote-unquote dead check or a high-tier item at the bottom.
Yeah, that's very true.
Meanwhile, Gar has found Katana Soul as one of the monster in a boxes here, and that's extremely important for his build because he has the fixed dice, and the fixed dice can be used with the drop that Katana Soul gives, the Offering, which allows you to do 4 hits per turn, or 4 fight commands per turn, at the cost of reducing each fight command by half. But the fixed dice does not accrue that divide by half damage penalty that the Offering puts out, because the fixed dice damage formula is different from that of any other weapon.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really helpful for him with that fixed dice, as you mentioned, being able to naturally equip it on set. Oof. It's a tough fight, though. The Katana Soul is a high risk, high reward in this instance.
The Valiant Knife is also another one of those weapons where the Offering benefits greatly, because the damage formula, again, is slightly different than any other weapon due to the fact that it takes that HP loss into consideration, so he could use that Offering on either one of those 2 characters eventually. Meanwhile, PB&J Please, sneaking a peek at what's at Umaro's cave, sees that it's not a character, but continues upwards to Kefka at Norsh, which is a non-character gated check. This is one of those where you can do this no matter what your party looks like, and it can have a character here, which makes it very interesting. It is the only non-character gated check that can reward a character in the entire game.
That's right. I believe, though, it was just a ghost sprite.
That's correct.
So we know that it's not a character, but it's going to be still worthwhile. Meanwhile, Gar is going through Daryl's tomb here.
Reads the inscription and sees Edgar sleeps here, so that will be the reward, but it is a statue boss with Goddess. So this may be a very difficult fight, especially with Umaro on the team, because Umaro likes to go ahead and just hit Goddess, and anytime you do a physical attack against Goddess, she may counter with that love token spell, which means other people will take physical damage for Goddess. And there it is. PB&J has validated his run, suplexing the Phantom Train there with Strago. Very nicely done. That's a joke,
right.
by the way. You know, it's it's not required to complete the seed. Although, with Worlds Collide, there are so many different options for you to customize the seed. You could actually make suplexing the Phantom Train a requirement for unlocking Final Kefka if you want. We do have that as one of the objectives that you can do. So that's a little bit of cheeky fun that we have sometimes.
Oh, yeah. And actually, speaking of that Offering, right? So Gar was able to find that Katana Soul in the chest right before this boss fight. And as you mentioned, it could either go to Sabin with the Valiant Knife or Setzer with the fixed dice. So he has opted to put it onto Sabin with the Valiant Knife, and it's worked out. He has defeated Goddess.
Yeah, very tough fight to get through, so nice job there getting through that one. PB&J Please getting an Esper for his troubles, and Gar is our first runner to have 6 characters. So as I mentioned before, now that he's got 6 characters, all he needs to find is Espers for Kefka Unlock. So if I'm in his shoes, I am going to try and lean heavily into checks that reward only Espers or items, and not necessarily characters, because I don't need any more characters.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and that's also another really interesting aspect of Worlds Collide. Knowing the checks that are available and knowing what their rewards are going to be definitely makes for an interesting routing decisions and knowing where should I go next. So yeah, now that PB&J and Gar and Drinks Glue, well, yeah, PB&J Fitz and Drinks Glue now only need one more character, and with Gar having 6, yeah, it's definitely full-on race for the shiny stones now, for sure.
Alright, Drinks Glue is heading up Fanatic's Tower, sees a Merchant Sprite at the bottom, so this will be an Esper. Remember I said Fanatic's Tower cannot be a dead check. Meanwhile, PB&J, please, headed into the Phantom Train, check the caboose, where you could check the reward before you go all the way through it, and found that it was a cat hood, so that is not something that he needed, so he reset out of that check and is going to move on to something else. Drinks Glue heading up through Fanatic's Tower. I think Square had an affinity for stairs back in these days between this and
Yeah.
Shinra Tower. But he is going to be able to get the high tier item at the top, going to potentially be able to fight the dragon halfway through and then get the reward at the bottom. So technically, Fanatic's Tower counts as 3 different checks if you do everything in Fanatic's Tower. And Drinks Glue still has Umaro in the party. And even though Fanatic's Tower is magic only, Umaro just does what he wants to do. So he's going to Yeti Smash, even if this is supposed to be, you know, magic only. So we'll see what he decides to do and how he gets on with this boss here at the top. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
third
opting
Guardian
to not
fight
go for the dragon.
PB&J, please. Maybe he'll hit the dragon on the way down. We'll see.
That's true. That's true. Would you go for the dragon on the way up just to possibly get that item, or would you do what Drinks Glue is doing and save it for on the way down?
Yeah, I think, well, with Worlds Collide, the answer to every single question is it depends. As this is a horrible fight here in
Yeah.
in Fanatic's Tower, as Tritok can only be damaged by fire magic, but thank goodness we learned Fire 2 along the way somehow, and we also have access to Meteor, which is non-elemental, so we can get through this fight. But for the dragon in the middle, I would take it before the boss if there is a spell that I have to learn on one or more of my characters, right? Because that dragon will give you 50 MP, so you could basically learn almost anything. But if you don't think you have enough magic points to get through both the boss fight at the top and the dragon, then I would take the boss fight first, because this one is a lot harder to get back to than the dragon, because the dragon's only halfway up, and this one's all the way up at the top.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Gar, meanwhile, is heading down through the Edgar checks. So we mentioned Edgar at the top of the broadcast and what his particular checks are. So this is the the Figaro engine room and then the ancient castle. So you have to open up the engine room before you do the ancient castle. And we did see that it was not a character heading through in order to clear out the tentacles with the thieves. So this will be either an Esper or an item here at the engine room. We did already see the throne, and I don't even remember what it was. So let's go check his tracker here. It looks like it must have been an Esper because he's at 3 Espers. So let's go and do that. And we'll see what's down here in the basement. It's like World of Ruin Norsh, but in Fanatic's Tower, because it's the Ice Dragon.
Yeah.
So try
Doom is down in the engine room.
Oh god. So
that's the second boss in a row that's a statue boss for Gar.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a dead Sabin. F's in the chat for Sabin there. He'll get back up though, and this is one of the things that you have to worry about, like I mentioned, when you do have a Valiant Knife, is you're going to have to babysit your Valiant Knife user a lot. Yes, they are going to be doing a lot of damage, but they're also going to be falling over a lot. And I think Gar has an Esper that teaches Life 3, which will be nice, because then he won't have to babysit nearly as much. Meanwhile, Drinks Glue goes and kills the dragon and finds a Ragnarok as the dragon drops, so that will be nice for his party. We'll see if one of his characters can equip it, or if he eventually stumbles across Edgar. Edgar can naturally equip that Ragnarok.
Yeah. Gar, actually, that Edgar that he found is now able to equip that Illumina. So we see Edgar swinging Illumina for Gar over there.
Alright, PB&J, please, is up in the top of Narsh, I believe, which is where he's fighting the Skull Dragon, so he'll get his Dragon Drop, his Dead Check, and then his Esper from this loop up here. Fitz finds our Strago napping at the end of the pier. That sounds like a nice time right about now, actually. And Drinks Glue
Nice,
gets,
nice Sunday activity.
yeah, Drinks Glue gets Ifrit at the bottom there. And speaking of Ifrit, that's Shiva at the engine room. So nice little Ifrit Shiva combination from our bottom runners. And it looks like Gar is going to continue on to the ancient castle, while Drinks Glue is heading over to do another one of Strago's checks with Ebbett's Rock.
Ooh, yeah, there we go. Ebbett's Rock, a little bit of a can become a nuisance of a check. As you arrive, you're supposed to open up a bunch of chests through the randomly teleported room that you're put into. And those chests can contain between 1 and, I believe, 5 pieces of coral. And you're hoping to get all the way up to 22 pieces of coral to then deposit it into the main chest, which, again, you're randomly teleported into that room. So there's no guarantee that it'll be there next once you hit 22 pieces. But you're trying to get 22 pieces of coral, get them into that chest, and then you can start the boss fight for your reward. So let's hope that he gets Drinks Glue gets lucky with these chests and is able to amass his 22 pieces relatively quickly.
Alright, so one free fits is going to give our number of 24 fight. So this is the one where I didn't see the reward for it from one of our other runners. But we do know that this is going to be an Esper for him. And Gar heading down to the ancient castle. So there is a dragon down here, as well as 2 Monster in a Boxes. However, he's already found the offering, so there's no reason for him to check Monster in a Boxes anymore. But he can learn some spells from taking the dragon and get the reward at the bottom. So with Ancient Castle, you can only get the Raiden reward and not the Odin and Raiden reward. So it's a little bit different than the vanilla game, where there's actually 2 Espers you could find down here. In Worlds Collide, there's only 1. Meanwhile, is that what I think I see there, Aprebs, on Drink Glue screen?
That is exactly what you think you see, yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we already know 24's up in the...
Yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about Magimaster here after...
Yeah. So Magimaster is the boss you would typically find at the top of the Fanatics Tower. And Magimaster has very, very high physical defense as well as a high evasion stat. And so it's hard to deal damage to him without using magic. However, he also has that pesky ability called Wall Change, which changes the element that he is vulnerable to / the elements that he can absorb and has resistance to. So it's a random shot. If you happen to not have non-elemental magic, you're kind of shooting in the dark and hoping that you're guessing the right element. However, if you have a something like Meteor, yikes, Gar just snuck out of that one.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Gar Saban was confused. He ended up killing most of the party, including himself, but also killed the boss. So thank goodness that Gao was the only one standing there. That was a bit of a ridiculous fight for him. So in Worlds Collide, you do not get XP for the characters that are dead. So only Gao will get all of the rewards from that fight, which is rather unfortunate. But
yeah,
anyway,
that is a little unfortunate.
More on Magimaster. So in Worlds Collide, we did fix the evade bug. So evade does work for Worlds Collide, and that makes Magimaster really hard to hit with physical attacks, as you mentioned. So we got to deal non-elemental ones or defense-ignoring attacks, like you see Pummel there from Strago. One of the other things we did to Magimaster is, since you are not guaranteed to get Life 3 as a spell in Worlds Collide, because again, the spells that each of the Espers teach is randomized, we did eliminate the Ultima counter on death for Magimaster, just because if we didn't, then it would make this boss impossible to kill, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
but he's he's one of those bosses that we are hoping not to see unless we are very confident and prepared with our magic.
Yeah, even still, you saw how long that fight took Drinks Glue there, and he is going to get an Esper, and that's a really nice one in Phantom for him, as he only has 4 Espers, so really good that he's able to clutch that one out. He does drop him. Magimaster also drops a Mega Elixir as his normal drop, which is great for the final boss, because the final boss will hit you with a spell that will take your party down to 1 HP. So, really nice to have a Mega Elixir to heal up your party to full HP and MP whenever you sort of want to consume it there. Another thing that we didn't really talk about, and you might have seen it with the Magimaster fight, is we have this feature called Ability Elemental Scaling, where bosses will sort of do more powerful versions of the elemental spells that they normally use. So for instance, Flame Eater, I think, uses Fire and Fire 2 in that fight. Well, if Flame Eater is scaled up enough, he will start using higher damaging fire spells like Fire 3 or S-Cross, and if he's low enough, he'll use, you know, sort of the weaker end of those fire spells, like, you know, Original Fire or Elf Fire. Original Fire, I sound like I'm singing an Audio Slave song here. But anyway, we're in the Casa del Fuego for Drinks Glue, so he's doing all the Strago stuff, giving the people what they want, I think, here, Prebz.
Yeah, no, it's sorry, say that again.
I said the Casa del Fuego is generally one of the checks that most runners don't like to do, but
yeah,
viewers certainly like to see it, for sure.
Yeah, it's a bit of a time-consuming one, but also the forced encounters that are in there. It's one of those tricky ones where I think there is a trick you can use to try to avoid them. Obviously, like the one that he just ran into, that one you can't avoid at all. It's blocking the door. You have to fight that one. But there's a way to get around some of those other ones that are more free moving around. But yeah, it's really hard to get that to happen, and you kind of got to go through all of them, and it does take a bit of time. But for me, I'm always really, I like to err on the side of getting levels and doing fixed encounters. So I don't mind it as much, but it is one of the ones that the large consensus agree we probably shouldn't go do that one unless necessary.
This is a speed run after all, right? We got to do this as fast as possible, and this is definitely one of the longer checks, but as you mentioned, does offer a lot of room for leveling, and levels are the most important thing in Worlds Collide. So yeah, it looks like he's going to be wasting some time now, but he's going to be making up that time later by killing bosses faster than the other runners, because he'll have more levels than the other runners. So it's sort of you know, how you get out how much you put in sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's also one of the things that just really makes Worlds Collide, I think, really a really good option for people who are interested in doing any sort of speedrunning and randomizing. It's very balanced. We've put in a lot of work to try to make things not super easy, but just really attainable and really easy to just pick up and try. Some other randomizers out there can be kind of complicated and can be hard to really get into. And this one is pretty, I think, easy to just pick up and try it out and have fun with it. And then you can get really, really good at it, doing it over and over and over again, but it's really easy to just pick up and go for it.
Yeah, it hits that sweet spot of easy to start, but difficult to master. Because we're mentioning a bunch of different, you know, things about the randomizer, but you also need deep vanilla game knowledge in order to get past some of these fights, because the boss weaknesses are the same as they are in vanilla. The locations where they are the same. How spells work and interact is all the same. How the weapons work is all the same. So there's a lot of things in the randomizer that you need the vanilla game knowledge for. And it looks like we do have Merton online for PB&J, please. So Merton is a AoE attack that basically hits both the enemies and your party with a fire and wind spell. So if you have wind or fire resistance or absorption, then you could actually heal your party and damage the boss at the same time, which is what PB&J Please is doing. I'm pretty sure he's got flame shields. He must have won a few of them from the Coliseum, right? We saw them in the Coliseum before. So that's where you see he's basically hurting Goddess, but healing 3/4 of his party there.
Yeah, PB&J is set up really nicely. Being able to cast Merton like that, and yeah, that's, I mean, I'd feel very comfortable if I were PB&J Please.
Meanwhile, Drinks Glue's trip into the Casa del Fuego paying off there as he gets a 6-character realm that I don't think a lot of other runners are going to be getting at this point, especially because they all have 6 characters already. So we'll see what Realm has, but normally Realm, or the Murder Child as she is colloquially known. I said that word right? I don't know. But yes. Anyway, she has 53 magic power and the sword tech ability. So we haven't seen Cyan to unlock all of the sword techs, but even a Realm with sword tech 5, which will allow Realm to replenish her HP and, more importantly, MP, is really good to have for casting. So that's a huge pickup for Drinks Glue there that I don't think any of the other runners are going to have.
Yeah, I don't think, as we mentioned, the Burning House is not one that we tend to go for that often. So Drinks Glue may be doing that check in the same way that Fitz went to do Zone Seek, and thinking, well, nobody else is probably going to go for it. Maybe I can do it and get an advantage. Huh. So yeah.
Well, Realm can swing the big sword too, so maybe she'll be doing that instead of doing magic, because Illumina is a very powerful sword you could use. So one of the things I love about Worlds Collide, and you're kind of seeing it here in this particular race, is that there isn't necessarily one path through a particular seed, as there are maybe in some other randomizers that are more key item hunts. You have to get certain key items in those randomizers. In Worlds Collide, the fact that we could do an objective-based system with doing numbers of characters or number of espers or maybe even number of checks or number of bosses killed can make it so that the seed can have many different paths that go through it, and it keeps for an entertaining race, and it also makes it hard for us here in the commentary booth to figure out who's in the lead and who's not in the lead. So that's one of the downsides of it, but I think the big upside is you can see many different spots of the game in one run, whereas in some other cases, you know, you might not see that with a key item hunt.
Yeah, and we brought that up before about the fact that we're not searching for key items. We are searching for the espers, which we can kind of consider a key item, but you're not locked into a very specific, like as you mentioned, path through the game, because, and that's another one of the things that I think makes it easy to pick up for people who are new to a randomizer, is it's a lot less confusing that way to know, like, oh, well, I know I find that key item here. I'm going to have to go there every time and get that key item every time, right? Like, it's so much easier to just pick up and be like, oh, okay, I got this character now. I can go do these things. And it's so much more inviting. So looks like we are, now that we've seen most of the same checks, though. Everybody's been able to go around different places. Everybody has most of the same characters, but now we're seeing Drinks Glue here going through one of Realm's checks. So new location alert there.
Yeah, the new hotness for Drinks Glue. So Realm is another new character that we haven't talked about and where she can go. So she opens up the Owser's Mansion check, where you recruit her in the World of Ruin in the standard game. And she also opens up the Esper Mountain check, where she sort of interrupts you and sketches Ultros. So we may see that out of Drinks Glue. That is a very fast check. And you sort of see how Worlds Collide operates here is we've cut out the majority of the story and the dialogue, and just fast forward all to the fighting bits and the bits where you sort of get rewards. So that's why I think this is a really good randomizer to race, because it offers you that chance to sort of do a good portion of the game within maybe a couple hours here.
Yeah, I'd say on average, most people are able to complete the game in under 2 hours for sure. I'd say that an hour and a half is a decent, like a good run for most people. That's the average, like really good run. If you can get below an hour and a half, that's like awesome. But most people can do it under 2 hours.
All right, so it looks like PB&J Please has the 7th Esper there from the engine room. So it looks like he's going to be taking the lead, especially if he goes down to the Ancient Castle, because I believe there is an Esper down there as well. So he's going to be knocking on the doorstep of Go Mode very soon here, folks. Oh, and he didn't do the throne yet either, so I think this is also an Esper as well. Yep.
Very nice.
Meanwhile, Drinks Glue heading to the Opera House Dragon, and it is a vanilla dirt dragon.
Would we call that a dragon, Schwantz?
Well, yeah. So I've heard, and I don't know how this is true, because I don't know much about Japanese, that the kanji for dragon that they used in in Final Fantasy VI meant either dragon or dinosaur monster. So sometimes you will see actual dragons, and then other times you'll see dinosaurs. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've heard is the rationale behind some of these sprites. But the sprites will lie to you. There's a lot of things in this game that don't make much sense. There is a characteristic of enemies called float, and things that you think would be floating are not actually floating, and things that you think would be floating, or things that you think would not be floating, are actually floating. Like, there's a chariot that's being pulled by a skeleton, which is not undead, and it is floating, and it is also weak to fire. So it's a lot of weird stuff that can happen with the sprites sometimes. So just ignore the sprites, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, we did see a Life 3 right there. For Drinks Glue. One of those Espers teaching Life 3, so.
Oh, and there's Shadow at Realm Spot. I wonder what Deadbeat Daddy is doing over here at Esper Mountain. So, one of the interesting things is Drinks Glue could walk out of this right now and just be done with this check, because he technically doesn't need another character. However, looking at his tracker, he's running out of areas in the game to go to in order to get his final Espers. So one of the things that runners may do is they may decide to intentionally take on a 7th or 8th character if it opens up more of the game to them, right? Other than Sabin, all of these characters have had 3 checks or less, and usually that's not a recipe for getting your requirements, because you need to complete a minimum number of checks in order to get to your 6 characters and 9 Espers.
Yeah, and this is where for me, like a bit of the panic sets in of like, okay, I'm almost there. Where should I go next? And it's and I've started to go a little bit more into that. I'm still memorizing which checks have which rewards, but then this is also where I keep in mind, like, okay, who did I get least or latest? Who's the latest person I got, and which of their checks give me, guaranteed Espers or items, and let me go there, and trying to kind of keep that in play. But it's I know for me, watching the timer tick away while I'm thinking about it really pushes me into some bad decisions sometimes.
Alright, so it looks like PB&J Please, when he gets to the bottom of Fanatic's Tower, will be in go mode here. And it looks like he's searching to do this dragon, so he will be at 19 checks and go mode. I wonder if he will take on a couple of more dragons or do a couple of more checks in order to get to the Kefka Tower statue skip versus having to go in the front door here. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So that's also another decision that our runners have to make, and it keeps things, you know, interesting here. So even if somebody gets go mode first, they might not necessarily even be in the lead, because if somebody gets the skip, they'll jump in front of that person that went into the entrance of the tower there. So lots of things to consider for Worlds Collide.
Yeah, lots of things to consider, and knowing, I mean, this is also the section where for me it's also wondering, okay, how am I going to split my main party? Knowing that we have to go through those 3 different paths in Kefka's Tower, how do I want to split my party up so that we can get through all of the bosses that we need to get through for Final Kefka, and who can carry the other characters I have that I haven't been leveling and haven't been taken care of to get through. So that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, because you are going to be packing some meat shields going into Kefka's Tower, because most of the runners have been using the same party for most of the game here. So that means their other characters are not getting the same amount of levels and whatnot that your other characters are. In the vanilla game, the game does a good job of making you split up your party and forcing you to take certain characters for certain parts of the game. That doesn't happen in Worlds Collide, so you run into this thing where all of a sudden you have a bunch of characters that are doing absolutely nothing and have been doing nothing for essentially the entire game. And that was Cyan there at Gal Manor. So I wonder if Drinks Glue heads into Cyan's dream now, having that Sword Tech realm in order to unlock all the Sword Techs for her. It looks like he's doing a bunch of free checks though right away after getting Setzer from Barren Falls, and unfortunately is not able to get the Espers that he needs right away. Meanwhile, both PB&J Please and Gar are heading into Kefka's Tower. Both of them have 19 checks, so it looks like what they're doing here, Aprevs, they are overloading their second party, and they are going to take the optional boss at Toilet Atma, and they're going to take the dragon to get to 21 checks in order to complete the skip. This is insane how big of a sync we are after 1 hour into the race, with 2 runners that took 2 pretty different paths to get there as well. They actually have the same character roster, whereas Drinks Glue and Bits, sort of differentiated a little bit here, but you could sort of see where the divergence and convergence comes into play.
Yeah, it is kind of awesome to see how in sync they are here, and really smart decision making too.
Oh boy!
As Doomgaze being that optional boss, oof, and that hits Gar pretty hard. Luckily, PB&J Please was able to get out of that unscathed, but for Gar, it's a bit of a rough hit.
Yeah, Doomgaze will kill you with math, folks.
Yeah.
if your level is a multiple of 5, Doomgaze starts with a spell called level 5 Doom. So if your level is a multiple of 5, you will automatically die. So that's part of the start of this particular fight, and unfortunately that means Gar is going to have to spend some more time recovering his party, which means less time killing the boss. So I suspect PB&J Please will be able to get out of this fight first, unless Gar can pull through with some of this offense that he has here.
Yeah, but this is a great example of we've mentioned the Kefka Tower skip, but I don't know if we fully explained what it is. But with the 21 checks, I believe the other requirements are either 9 characters or 12 espers.
That's
but
correct.
Also with 21 with.
Yeah, so Drinks Glue already has Kefka Tower skip because he has 9 characters. So he can't get another skip at 21 checks. That's not how that works.
Right. Although he will reach 21 checks on his search for some more Magicite.
That's right.
But yeah, so now that they have when they unlock Kefka Tower Skip. Essentially, it allows the runner, when they are first flying in and landing at Kefka Tower, to decide if they want to land in the normal starting position or if they want to land directly onto the switches, which is slightly more than the halfway point up the tower, so that they can go directly into fighting the 3 statue bosses and the Guardian boss spot.
Alright, so that's Dragon down there for PB&J, please. That will be his Kefka Tower skip. And you see, even though PB&J and Gar basically have the same roster of characters, they have completely different parties of what they're doing, too. Which is also a really cool thing about Worlds Collide, is it depends on what you found, right? So, we know that PB&J, please, found some stuff in the Coliseum. Whereas we know that, PB&J doesn't have any warp stones, and he misses the hook! Blues Traveler! Let's go, grab that hook! He's gonna have to wait for it to come back around here. Yeah. And Gar's out of the tower first, in spite of being behind on killing the bosses. Wow, what a travesty for PB&J here.
He did get another flame shield from that. Oh, he missed it again. He did get another flame shield from that dragon, so another more Merton protection for PB&J.
There we go.
There we go.
You do have to hit A on the hook to grab it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, One Free Fitz is taken to the auction house in an attempt to purchase his last Esper. So it seems like there are shiny stones available for sale. And the strategy for the auction house, I'll explain it a little bit briefly here, as he does find warp stones actually at this spot. A little bit of salt in the wound for our runners on the right-hand side anyway. So the strategy in the auction house is there are 4 items for sale, and when you buy that item, it comes out of the pool. And the chances of each item showing up are dependent upon how expensive the item is. The $50,000 item has a 50% chance to show up. The $20,000 reward, which can be an Esper or an item, has 25% chance to show up. So, if you buy the $50,000 item first, it increases the chances that your shiny stone will show up to 50% of the time. So that, I think, is the strategy that we are going to employ here, is to buy out the expensive stuff and reset on the stuff that's not expensive, because we don't need to go buy it. Alright, so we got 2 different bosses here. We got Ultros 4 for Gar. I think this is at the left statue. No, that was the middle spot.
That's the Guardian spot.
And PB&J is at the left statue, right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, sorry, I didn't even realize they were already in there doing that.
Yeah, so you did see what the Kefka Tower skip entailed, as we do see Terra lying on the ground at the Belt Cave, so that would have been character number 10, so Glue is out of there. So the Kefka Tower skip just allows you to start at the switches right before the boss gauntlet. So it basically lets you skip all of the walking through Kefka's Tower, where you have to push the weights down and fight the Inferno boss and, you know, do a lot of the walking. So it's really
and those
nice
random
time save.
Yeah, those random like terrain moving switches you got to hit on the way to let your other party members through. So, yeah, it's if you can get it, if you can route it into your run, the way that PB&J and Gar have shown, or just naturally through exploration, as Drinks Glue has shown with his extra characters, it can be very helpful to unlock that skip.
Yeah, it saves on average around 5 to 7 minutes, depending upon what you find at that Inferno spot. And that is if you get the skip before going into the tower, right? PB&J, Please, and Gar had to go into the tower to clear out a boss and a dragon, and then do the skip. So it didn't save them as much time, but it still saves some time.
Yeah. Gar doing a little bit of maintenance with his character's equipment and such, as he is approaching the final boss there before swapping parties to take care of the next boss. But definitely keeping in mind some of those elemental weaknesses and whatnot. Oh, and running into the spicy chicken.
Yeah, so sometimes the statues are in Kefka's Tower, so we've seen all three of them today. We've seen Goddess, right? One Free Fits is fighting Doom here at Figaro Engine Room, and Poltergeist is in Kefka's Tower, so our bosses, our maximum scale is 40. So right now, what is Gar's boss? So he's at 19 total, times 2, which would be 38. So his Poltergeist is level 38. And I don't know what his characters are, but this is going to be a difficult fight, I believe, either way. And yeah, he's going to have to take a reset and regroup there, as One Free Fits does get in go mode as well, finishing out the engine room, getting his Esper. But he's at check 20 out of 21, so we'll see if he decides to take on one additional dragon. And oh no, PB&J, please. Taking a nap to Flame Eater there. Not something you see very often, but
yeah,
Kefka Tower bosses are difficult because you do have to split up your party. And the party that you've been playing with all game has had 4 very strong characters, right? Now, in Kefka's Tower, you're dividing your party up into 3. So one party has 1 strong character, one party has only 1 strong character, and one party has only 2 strong characters. So here you see the difficulty of the high-scaled bosses against a sort of deprecated, that's not the right word, decimated party.
There we go.
I will English as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Commentary is hard, folks.
And this is I'm pretty sure this is vanilla Poltergeist spot too.
I think
right,
this is the
right.
I think
this is the right statue, right?
So Poltergeist is at the Flame Eater spot. So
okay,
in the
there we go.
Whereas
Gotcha.
I think this is what they would consider French vanilla. This is at the Goddess statue here.
And it looks like Fitz is gonna go do a dragon. He's gonna go do the World of Ruin Opera House dragon.
And while he does that, Drinks Glue is going to be getting our go mode there from him.
There we go. Yeah, that is the auction house Esper he was able to get.
So that's go mode for him, and it will be go mode for Fitz plus Skip with the dragon down. So you'll notice here on Drinks Glue, he will save outside the tower, and then he'll basically skip to right where PB&J, Please, and Gar are. So even though Glue did some more checks, and One Free Fits may have done some longer checks, they're still in this, and it's still anybody's race here, folks.
Yeah,
I'll see if I can get PB&J, Please, back in the meantime. So just give me 1 second. Sorry about that.
Go for it. You do what you got to do. But yeah, it's actually, so each of our runners being able to acquire the skip here. And yeah, this is what I was talking about. As you see Drinks Glue formulating his parties here, this is exactly what I was talking about for me, where I always kind of panic a little bit now that I have to split the party. And yeah, having to have one of my strong characters essentially solo and hope that the other characters provide meat shields. It's a bit of a scary prospect, and then it's a little more comfortable with the party that ends up having 2 of your stronger characters. But it is that's one of the scarier parts of Kefka Tower. But being able to skip ahead and go straight into these boss fights here, the statue fights, is the time you make up by by being able to skip through that is really monumental.
All right, so we have PB&J, Please, back, and it looks like he's going up against our spicy chicken here. Meanwhile, I believe Gar has taken down all of the bosses, so he will be starting Final Kefka very shortly. So unlike all of the other enemies in the game, Final Kefka is not actually scaled to your party. We did this because, as you could clearly see, Drinks Glue's bosses right now are harder than everybody else's bosses because he took a less than optimal route through the seed, and we didn't want to punish runners on the final boss of the game for the route that they took through the seed. So the final boss is actually unscaled, so their levels are actually much, much higher than any other boss that you would have encountered thus far. I think some of the levels are level 70s and 80s inside of this final boss. So do you want to talk a little bit, Prebz, about what this final boss is and what the tiers are and how you sub parties in and out and things like that?
Yeah, yeah. So as you initiate this boss fight, you get to select the 4 starting party members of the fight that you'd like, and then from there you also get to pick the rest of your order. Or, as you saw Guard do, you pick the 4 you want, and then you just move ahead, and it'll pick the rest of the parties, place them randomly. There are essentially 4 tiers to this final boss fight, and in our first tier here that you see, there's essentially 3 targetable sections of this boss fight. There's the head, there's the long arm, which is the one closer to you on the screen, and then there's the short arm with the balled up in a fist on the back side of the screen. The long arm and the head we're going to try to kill first. The head is weak to fire, but if it's the last killed, it can counter with Quake, which is a earth elemental magic that is unavoidable unless you are floating, so it can be very bad. The long arm, though, the long arm is actually susceptible to death magic such as X Zone, so it's pretty easy to take care of that one if you have that available. Otherwise, you just knock it down the way you do. And then the fist in the back does not actually have any death counters. Wow, look at that damage from Merton.
Yeah. So one thing is that long arm is weak to wind magic, so that's why you see the quad 9s, because technically, again, like I mentioned, Merton is a fire and wind elemental spell.
That's
this
right.
balled up fist is actually weak to water, but I'm not sure that we have any water spells. Normally it's through throwing skeins, or if I think one of our characters have rage, right? Edgar has rage, so if we have the ninja rage, which also throws water elemental stuff at the enemies, or one of the lures that Strago has.
Yeah, one of the lures.
All right, and we're on to the second tier, so let's talk about tier 2 here.
Tier 2. Tier 2 is where things can go wrong. There's a lot of things happening. So there is the tiger head that's on the bottom right. There's the blue guy sitting on top of Tiger. And then there is the guy with the ponytail kind of facing down. And then there's the guy with the ponytail on the far left. So the guy on the far left only uses magic and can cast a lot of debilitating debuffs and things like that. So we want to mute him as quick as possible, which is why you see Siren being used here. And Schwantz actually mentioned that Siren is a good one, a good Esper to have for that final battle, and this is why. The guy having his face down, that I think that's Tools, right?
Yes, that's Tools. Well, that was
Tools. Was Tools, yes, because Tools is weak to instant death spell as well, and it tends to use a lot of those Magitech attacks, like Tech Missile and Tech Lasers and things like that, which can deal a decent amount of damage. The blue guy only uses physical attacks, and is weak to poison and Maneater. Maneater is a weapon we didn't really talk about. It can be it's a niche weapon, but it is very helpful in this last fight here as well. And Tiger uses a lot of freezing moves and can cast zombie on your party, so we want to take him out as early as possible as well. Anything I missed here for tier 2?
Yeah, the blue guy will also death counter with 10 physical attacks.
Oh, that's right.
So we want to make sure that we're ready for that. Especially since we have Sabin, who's got that Valiant Knife. We're trying to keep him at lower HP levels. So we have to be careful with 10 hits. Here it comes.
And there it is.
So what we'll do is if Sabin dies here, magic is muted. So magic can't do anything to us. So this is the point where we'll pick up our Sabin back with a Phoenix down. Do we have a Phoenix down? Please tell me we have one. Okay.
Oh
yes,
my goodness. Okay.
So yeah, we've got a Phoenix down, so we'll bring him back up. The bad thing is, if Sabin was killed and we are transitioning from one tier to another, that is when you'll bring in another character from your lineup, or as I call it, a scrub off the bench. And in the
Yeah.
vanilla game, it's not that bad because you've got lots of different characters that you've leveled up to do lots of different things. But in Worlds Collide, we don't have that. We have our 4 strong party members, and then we have our meat shield. So we really want to avoid at all costs having somebody come off the bench for us. And this is a disaster, as magic will death counter with quarter and up to 2 dispels, and unfortunately the quarter came out and hit 3/4 of his party, and oh my god, I need to put a 25-cent piece in a phone somewhere. As now we're up to tier 3, and why don't you talk a little bit about tier 3 here?
Yeah, so tier 3 has that very, very much Kefka looking character there. We call him Sleep. And then there's Lady, who's kind of watching over him. So Lady absorbs all types of elements, and if you happen to kill Sleep first, she can fully heal him to full HP, revive him to full HP. Uh-oh.
Yeah, we're in trouble here. The W wind can take your party down to 1/16, I think, HP of your max. But thankfully, Girl is going to be gone in just a second here with another attack. Only has 9,999 HP, but Gar has to be careful because Sleep has 40,000 hit points, and when he gets under 10,000, we'll start countering with devastating AoE attacks, or we'll use the spell Train, which mute and blinds your entire party. So he's trying to figure out what the heck to do here, as he's trying to calculate how much damage he's done. I think he's got Phantom, which is an Esper that you could summon in order to make your party invisible, which means physical attacks will not hit, but magic attacks will always hit. And the death counter of this particular boss here is called Calmness. It's an instant death physical, so really nice job setting up Phantom and then using that Valiant Knife to do over 20,000 damage to kill off that part of the boss in one hit here. So really nice showcase there from Gar on how to use a lesser known Calmness strategy, right? You could use things like Life 3, which will pick you back up after an instant death spell, or some other Esper summons that make physical attacks not hit, like Golem or Fenrir. But Phantom is a backup strat that's very risky to use because, again, if you miscount that and you don't kill the boss, he will counterattack you with an AoE spell, and since being vanished means magic attacks always hit, that would mean, in that case, that the magic attack would hit his entire party, and it would have killed his party at the HP levels that his party's at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thankfully, though,
Bit of a scary one.
brings him back up to full health for everybody except Sabin, and here you could see the power of the Valiant Knife doing northwards of 22,000 damage per turn. Kefka has 60,000 HP, so Sabin literally carved off a third of his HP in one turn. Unfortunately, I don't think this Kefka is going to last long enough for us even to talk about this fight, but we'll give you the cliff notes here, or maybe we'll talk about it when PB&J does it. So 60,000 HP, will counterattack with some really nasty things like Hyperdrive and Havoc Wing, which are the strongest single target attacks in the game. Has a chance to counter with Ultima, which is the strongest spell in the game, but when he's charging up for that Goner phase, does not do any counterattacks. So that's why Gar just said, hey, let me throw all my shields and everything I can at him. I can't take it with me after the fight's over. So Gar is going to be your first place finisher here in this race. What is his official time?
I'd say it was around 120. Let me see where he put 120.48.
Very nicely done. So normally after a race, what we like to do is get our players into the booth to talk with them in an interview format. So we'll see if they would like to do that while we start, finishing up our chat about the rest of the tiers here, as both Drinks Glue and One Free Fits fought their way through that Poltergeist fight. That was, I think, the hardest part of the entire seed for most of our runners here. As Calmness is avoided by PB&J, please, so very nicely done. He's going to take his full party up to Final Kefka here, as we are joined by Gar, the winner of our submission race. So congratulations on your first place finish.
GG Gar.
GG.
Hey, thank you so much.
Yes.
What a seed that was. My goodness.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about, how you've made your way through this seed, essentially.
Yeah, so it was a little slow at the start. I didn't really have the offense to get through things effectively. I found that Illumina early on, and then couldn't use it. The Valiant Knife was neat, but I didn't have the offering for a bit to really take advantage of it. But when I found that Edgar, that really cracked the seed open, I think. Him being able to wear that Illumina, giving him the gauntlet, so he can just muscle through basically everything. Then Gao learning Merton at the end of the seed. If I had bought that Esper earlier, he could have had Merton much earlier, as could have Setzer. But yeah, that was basically the seed after that. Once I found the offering, it was basically set from there.
Yeah, so considering that you had that Valiant Knife to start, we were talking about the fact that there is a monster in a box that can drop an offering. Were you sort of gravitating towards those checks when you were thinking, what should I do next? Should I go after my monster in a box checks? Or what was your thought process there?
Yeah, so the Valiant Knife is a very, very powerful weapon because it gains damage as you lose HP, and it's not subject to the same damage reduction formula that other weapons might be. So in Worlds Collide, having the Valiant Knife with that offering is one of the best offensive things that you could ever do. And so, yeah, getting that Valiant Knife early on, it definitely skewed me towards, hey, which checks do I do now? And if they don't have monsters in a box, I kind of rate them a little bit lower. So normally I try to sit on Collapsing House a little bit, but because it's got 2 monsters in a box there, it provides a really good shot at getting that offering. So I was lucky enough to find it. Where was that? Daryl's Tomb. So just in time for the goddess fight. So yeah.
Yep. So, sorry to interrupt here, but it looks like PB&J did, unfortunately, have to take a goner. So now Kefka may be counterattacking anything that he uses with an Ultima spell. So this is very dangerous here, going for this Flame Shield attack, but he's calculated how much HP Kefka has left, has enough damage to do it, and that is going to do it for PB&J, please, as well. So get your GGs in chat for him. And he's going to finish up with a time of 1:25.01. So a very close race between the two of you, actually. You both were in sync going into Kefka's Tower for your 2 checks for skip at exactly the same time.
Oh, that's wild. I can't wait to watch this one back because I know that Glue and Peanut Butter and Jelly and One Free Fits, they're all terrific runners, and I figured that, honestly, I kind of felt behind because a good chunk of the way through the seed, I was trying to look for warp stones, never found them, and I figured that, if people had just gone for checks, that they would have been ahead. So, yeah, cool to see that this race is as close as it was. So, yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing is, PB&J actually had the better offense for the 2 fights that you guys had. So he finished the bosses first, but struggled a bit on catching the hook out of Kefka's Tower. Yep. So neither one of you having warp stones played a factor in this. And he also, I think, struggled a little bit more on the Poltergeist fight at the end there. So that is essentially the time difference, because you guys had very different parties, which is really cool to see, as we're also joined by PB&J, please, in second place. Congratulations on a heck of a finish there.
Thanks. That was a kind of crazy one.
Yeah, that's basically what I said.
Yeah, so
GG.
So for your offense, you were slightly different than Gar. You decided to keep Strago and Gogo and use Merton because you had bought that Esper very early on in the seed and found the flame shields both in the Colosseum and from a couple of dead checks. So talk to us a little bit about your strategy, finding one of the powerful spells early on there.
Yeah, once I started finding all those elemental shields, and I had that rage ring at the start, and I was like, okay, I could probably make Merton work. I also had the Valiant Knife on Sabin and an Illumina that no one could use for a long time. And it was weird. Like, it felt like nothing really fit together except the Merton thing, so I kind of leaned into that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love about Worlds Collide is you guys essentially had the same number of characters, number of Vespers, number of dragons, number of checks. You had the same roster, but you took two completely different parties into the final boss. So it really showcases the versatility and the variety of the randomizer here, which is really good to see. Any struggles that you had, Gar, in your run that you had?
Biggest one was probably Poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little weird that you get an Ultras League seed that has all three statues showing their faces.
Yeah. and Magi Master was also in Daryl's, not Daryl, the other thing.
Yeah, that was
Ebbets
Rock.
Yeah. And you guys also fought Doomgaze, right? At the Toilet Atma.
At the Atma, yeah, Toilet Atma.
Guardian at Barren Falls. So you guys fought a lot of difficult bosses this seed, yeah.
Yeah, if it weren't for the level of offense that the seed had, I would say that the seed was pretty rude. And again, like it kind of was in some respects, right? Like you don't want to run into Magi Master. You don't want to run into any of the statues, let alone all three of them. But having that offering Valiant Knife, having that Illumina, having Merton available, that's a ton of offense. So it wasn't bad. Poltergeist is probably the rudest one there, and I was fortunate enough to have my Valiant Knife wielder to take care of that side, because otherwise I think I might have struggled a lot more.
Yeah, we did see you, PB&J, please struggle a little bit, and I think that's where the gap between the two of you sort of opened up, because you were essentially in sync going into Kefka's Tower for your 2 checks for skip, and then the hook. What's up with the hook there?
Hook power.
The hook definitely.
Yeah.
The hook. The third try was the charm for the hook, but that's where Gar actually took the lead. Was your struggles with the hook, and then the Poltergeist fight. We joke about the hook, but really it was the spicy chicken. Really.
Spicy Chicken is probably the meanest of all the statues. Goddess can be trouble if you don't have the right party, but
yeah,
Poltergeist is trouble basically no matter what. And I don't think we... I didn't check, really, but I don't know if I ever had stop. Because Poltergeist can be stopped, but I didn't have it, and so had to just kind of muscle through it.
Yeah, so PB&J, tell us a little bit about, how you tried to navigate through that seed. I noticed you went to not Kefka's Tower, Fanatic's Tower a bit later because you knew that there was a guaranteed Esper there after peeking it. Was that sort of part of your strategy, is to leave a lot of the peekable checks towards the end of the seed when you knew, sort of what you needed to get?
Yeah, and basically it was like I could do Ancient Castle, Zone Eater, or Strago checks, and so I knew Fanatics was an Esper, so I just decided to do that one. But yeah, generally peekable checks saved for the end, but I did peek the train earlier.
Yeah, that cat hood on Phantom Train was not fun for anybody here. Alright, this is simultaneous Goner here, and it's going to be crazy to see who the heck is going to finish first. One Free Fitz gets out of Goner first. There's the crack pal for him first, and then 2 seconds later, Drinks
Oh my gosh.
130.
Yeah, they were in sync pretty much that whole
131-36. Oh my goodness. So, One Free Fitz coming back. He started that Kefka fight a little bit later than Drinks Glue, so time stops at the first flash of Final Kefka, so well done to our left-hand side runners. Give them a GG's as well. Hey, Prebs, you got any questions for Gar and PB and J before we get our other two runners in here?
No, I think you got the good questions in there. Pretty much going to have the same questions for these two. I'm still just while you were all talking about that, I was watching Fitz and Drinks Glue essentially go through the entirety of Final Kefka, pretty much in sync.
Yeah,
that was intense.
It was wild. So we'll start off with you, Gar. You got any other final words you want to say to the pickers of the submission, or anything about the community or the game, or give us your pitch here.
Yeah, absolutely. So NAMI is a terrific organization. I am privileged to be able to volunteer for RPG Limit Break. I've done it the past couple of years, and we'll be doing it this third event coming up. So regardless of whether this gets in or not, I am going to be helping out NAMI, which I think is a wonderful cause. But I do want to thank the folks over at RPG Limit Break. Thank you very much for your consideration for this run. Thanks to Drinks Glue and Fitz and PB&J Please and Aprebs and Schwantz27 for putting this together. We kind of scrambled a little bit last minute just to try and get the schedules lined up, but thank you all very much for making this work. Thanks to everybody at home watching our wonderful race. I hope you all had a great time. And that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
All right, and PB&J, any last thoughts before we talk to Drinks Glue and One Free Fits?
Just ditto what Gar said. I think covered it all.
Yeah, this was a really fun race to watch, and you guys definitely leading the charge there, being in sync in Kefka's Tower was really cool to try and figure out who was going to take over there towards the end. So again, thank you so much for volunteering to be not only part of the race, but also to get the submission together and fill out all the paperwork in order to expand our community and showcase our great game to the greater populace and for a wonderful cause as well. So appreciate you guys running this morning. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's pivot on to Drinks Glue and One Free Fits, 2 seconds apart at the end there, and you guys took radically different routes to get there as well. So we'll start with you, Drinks Glue. You found 9 characters, and you found a 10th laying on the ground there. So what was sort of your strategy in this particular seed? How did you sort of approach it? Were you looking to hopefully max out on one or the other and then go peak for your deficient requirement, or was that just something that it fell into place based on what you did?
I was hoping to find all 14, to be honest with you. There are 14 characters in Final Fantasy VI.
This is not the Pokemon Randomizer. This is Final Fantasy VI. You don't have to catch them all.
No, I made some routing mistakes. I got a little flag bleed from our other events, but that's all right. It happens. That's why you practice. And but yeah, other than that, I thought it's lots of fun. Anytime you get to play Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide with your friends, you always have a good time, even when you finish 2 seconds apart.
Yeah. So, and then Fitz, you did a bunch of different interesting checks as well. I think both you and Glue, I think, were the only ones that did any of Strago's checks whatsoever besides the Peekable Fanatics Tower. So what was sort of your strategy going in here? I noticed you did some of the different checks, like you did Zone Eater relatively early. You went up and did, the Yeti checks in World of Ruin Narsh relatively early. Was that part of your strategy with this particular race?
Well, so with the opening kind of loot that I had gotten, I had enough power that, that I could do some stuff. So I feel like I got started pretty quickly, and I wanted to go get freebies, and then I wanted to go to the Imperial camp after I had raised scaling a bunch. But it turned out that all the freebies I went to were dead checks. So it was like, well, I'll go fight a dragon then. Like, that's kind of where I had to pivot from what I wanted to do.
Makes sense.
And then I was still like, well, I haven't found a character, so that's cool. And then when I saw there was one at Imperial Camp, I was like, ooh, I know someone went here like first, and they probably are gonna avoid a lot of my dead checks. So from that point on, I was really stepping on it. Had an early VK knife that I could use. Eventually found the offering. I had Merton protection. There was just so many things going on. I had an Illumina. I had 2 Ragnaroks. Like,
yeah.
So in the Coliseum, there were Atma weapons for sleeping bags.
Yep.
But
Ooh, I didn't
nobody
see
could
that.
wear the Atma weapon that you found that would have been in your party. Unfortunately, I found there were Illuminas, Ragnaroks, Atma weapons, Valiant knives, and Yumaro couldn't wear any of them. So I will petition to change that.
It's vanilla plus 33% random. Those are the rules. I don't make the rules, so.
Yeah, so that should have been a 133% chance he could have wore one.
Yeah, so there were actually Ragnaroks in the Coliseum for one of the starting
Mithril knives.
weapons. Yeah. So I think Drinks Glue, you had picked one of them up.
Yeah.
So with Umaro in the starting party, is that part of your guys' strategy? Is to try and look at what the Coliseum is offering?
Oh, definitely. Yumaro is the Coliseum god. You can't cast
I would say
X-Zone on you.
it makes me more likely to go there. And if I haven't found power before I want to boot the Yeti out of the party, I usually make a trip to the Coliseum at some point. I try to get like ahead of scaling so he can just like one hit whatever he might come across. And then this seed, like I did go there for a Ragnarok too, which thank goodness Setzer could use.
Yeah,
but then I got another one anyway, so it was like, oh, see, sometimes it's like sometimes
when
it pays off
it
big
pours,
time,
right?
and then like other times it's like, oh, I got something, and then I just find it for free later, and it's like, oh, well, that was actually a waste of time in hindsight. But we can't know that at the time, so it's just
Correct. Yeah.
those interesting like probability-based decisions that we make a ton of throughout the entire run.
Yeah, and that was something that I think, you had gone to get that offering out of Daryl's tomb, whereas Drinks Glue did not. So I'm guessing Fitz.
That's where it was.
I'm guessing Fitz that you gravitated towards those checks with the monster in a box, getting that Valiant knife so early.
Yeah, those had priority, and I had to pull like a lot of them before I finally found it. But yeah, I was searching hard for them. I think a favorite moment was when I found Gigantos and the Yeti just like stormed it one shot. It was like, cool, nice shot. And then like having like the early Mirage vest made me pretty also confident to not really try to find a lot more equipment or even like calmness protection. I only had Phantom, and I just decided that I was gonna life 3 the couple people that might get hit. And like 10 hits was a lot less scarier too, where I didn't have to be as patient on tier 2 because I was pretty sure that we were gonna be fine.
Yeah. We did see, we did get life 3, I think, on some of the Espers, but we also saw Drinks Glue pulling off a really nice Phantom strategy to avoid calmness. I never make that work, even though I know how to do it, because I can't count well enough, and I think that shows off just the skill of you guys as runners to know exactly how much damage you have to do before things get, a little hairy. So really awesome to see that strategy. Glue, you got any other final thoughts on the seed, or do you want to give, just sort of your general pitch to the reviewers of the submission about why they should pick us?
Oh yeah, just sending you. Well, the amazing thing about Worlds Collide versus some of the other randomizers that you'll find out there is that no 2 seeds are the same, with the abilities being able to be shuffled and the characters, the different paths you take. No two real seeds ever come out the same. You get different adventures, different abilities, different spells, different offense. You get one seed, you get Atma wielding Yamaros. The next seed, you're doing sword tech the entire time. And that's one of the nice things about Worlds Collide is the variety and the different scenarios that our runners utilize and put together the craft offense. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, so I completely agree with all that. We were pointing out, there's lots of different party members. For instance, you had found Realm and were using her for the end game party build that you had, whereas some other people were using, Gogo and Strago, with Gogo being able to mimic Merton. That was something that, another runner had found really early, and Mimic doesn't use up any magic power. So if you could cast Merton once, you can cast it twice. So that was really cool to see, like, the divergent character parties at the end. Fitz, do you have any other final thoughts or pitches for our submission here?
Yeah, it's always interesting to watch. It's one of those. It's the type of race where until we get close to the end, it's kind of hard to really say, who has a lead. And also, we typically will have some fun incentives to make us go do stuff that takes up a lot of time that are fan favorites. And I think a lot of people love Final Fantasy VI, and the randomizer is a way to play it over and over again and have it be a different experience. So I think I'd love for more people to be able to see it run. I can't sign off without pointing out, I did say I was going to be the third strongest Moogle as my team name ahead of time. So I feel like I won because I called my shot and I got it. So
there you go.
Yeah, thanks to the Restream crew for calling the race and helping us record this submission, and I have fingers crossed. I would love to be able to participate.
Yeah, so thank both of you so much for volunteering to not only race in this submission video, but to also volunteer for helping to put the submission together, filling out some of the paperwork, and for volunteering your time to help showcase our wonderful game to a much wider audience, and also for a great cause for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So really appreciate you guys being here. Can't have the races without the runners. Also want to shout out my co-commentator A-Prebs, who did a great job with me in the booth. So thank you guys so much, and I think that's going to do it for our submission here. So thank you to the chat as well for hanging out. We'll have some more tournaments that are going on throughout the community as well, and the game is still in open source sort of mode now, so we do get new features and new contributions all the time to the game, so that keeps it fresh and interesting as well. But I think that's about it here for us. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.